Eli, we're done. Can you make sure you do the punk rock one?
Let's go!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Primas podcast. This is your Prima Cindy. I don't know because I was gonna say something and then something else came on and I'm sorry. I got nervous. And I'm here with my beautiful shorter cousin, Jessica.
Hi, Prima. Hello. I feel you though. We're not something in this week, huh? Where we're not like aligning. I feel it in our energy in the intro.
Yeah, sorry you guys. We did the intro. This is like the third time, and it's just like, you know what? We're just gonna give them the raw version of our stressed out selves. Okay. So welcome. Thank you so much for listening. Today we want to stand up to hate. As all of us may know, as some of you may know, there is a lot of anti-Asian hate and there's a lot of hate crimes going on. And all of this is due to when Donald Trump said the China virus, and he referred to the pandemic and COVID-19 as the Kung flu and the China virus. And then it just kind of started this horrible ripple effect or cause and effect situation. And anyway, we want to get into that today because the Primas stand with our Asian brothers and sisters. We stand against hate. We want to use our platform to call it out and to offer a little bit more insight on the situation, and then kind of like, as always, end with what solutions today, right now, to give back positive energy to the rest of the world.
Yeah, Prima, this is a super important topic. We need to address it and speak our truth. So let's delve into this.
So the first thing I wanted to talk about was I hear a lot of the videos that are going around, like they're so horrible. I don't really like watching the news. I don't like watching anything, but obviously I did. I mean, it's really hard not to see it. Even if you don't click on the video, like on YouTube, you're going to see the tagline and it's going around. And so some of the videos that I did see, elderly people were being attacked. People from behind were being attacked. And I feel like that's super coward because it's just weak, like anytime you're gonna come at someone and you're doing it from behind, like you're a weak ass bitch. Or like that's weak ass energy. Like be a fucking stand-up person. And if you're really trying to fight with somebody, if you're really trying to come at someone, like do it from the front, pick on somebody your own size. So I think that's messed up. I think anytime you hurt a vulnerable individual like elders and children, or again, someone from behind, like shows that you're a coward. You're hurting someone and then knowing that you can hurt them and then like moving away or running or go back to where you came from. And I think a lot of us who may have looked deeper into the US history know that unless you're Native American, to tell anybody in the United States go back to where you came from is pretty darn ironic, and it's completely false because super duper duper quick US history lesson, because we're not taught this when we're in high school. We're not taught this growing up. Luckily, I went to East LA College and I took African American studies, Chicano studies, Asian American. And then when I went to Long Beach, I took Japanese American studies, Chicano and Asian studies. There was a class where two teachers did like half and half. I thought that was super cool. And they focused on like World War II. But anyway, so that's where you learn the real shit. But today you can find all of this stuff online. Everything that I learned in college, you can find online, except for research papers, which sucks that we don't have access to that, but stay woke. We don't have access to that because only people in certain statuses can have access to research papers, because after your university time is up, whatever, once you graduate or whatever, you no longer have access to these articles, which I think is whack. Okay. Before I go on my little US history rant, Jess, did you want to say anything? Because I feel like I'm taking up airtime.
I'm glad we are going to give a little bit background check because I completely agree with what you just said. Donald Trump I don't want to say it was the root because everyone makes their own choices, but when he started making these false accusations last year when the coronavirus was starting out, and yeah, we heard reports it started in China, it gives no validation or any justification for these hate crimes to continue. And it's just to show, like, it blows my mind how people voted for him, like the ignorance this guy just spewed while he was our POTUS. It's ridiculous, and I never condone hate, and which is why I've said it in our other episode, where I'm glad they took him off social media. These are the exact what's the word I'm looking for? Consequences for throwing out these lies about a group of people that had nothing, don't even live in China, that live here, were born and raised here. Whatever their situation is, he has no right to say or to repeat these words and just say like, nope, it started the Chinese virus. Yeah, I've heard him say that, and the Kung flu virus. And it's just like, it's so ridiculous. So I'm glad we're going to talk about it and address it.
It's ridiculous, and we're calling this one person out, but it's really not this one person, right? It's this energy, because he has so much following. He won the first election, meaning that this many people thought whatever they thought of him, they were like, this is a stand-up person for some reason, and they voted for him. And so, okay, so the quick US history is, before European settlers came to the Americas, and so when I say Americas, I mean the continent, North and South America. When they came, before that, it was only indigenous people. It was only Native Americans. And when I say Native Americans, I'm not talking about specifically like the Native Americans in North America. I'm talking about Native Americans to the Americas. So it's all of the, Native American groups that we do know in the United States. And I'm talking about the Aztecs, the Olmecs, the Mayans, and I'm leaving a bunch of different groups out, but this is what I'm referring to. They were here before Christopher Columbus discovered America. He didn't discover America, but right, that's what we're taught. So he didn't discover America. There were people already here that had very structured and organized cultures and communities and business trades, and there was a lot of engineering and just there was just a lot going on, but we don't get taught that. We're only taught in the United States from a Eurocentric perspective. But in the defense of people and where we are, every country does that. Every country wants you to be proud of their message, and so they're going to tell you the story that they want to hear. But again, with the technology that we have today, with the information that we have today, now we're starting to see that, like, wait a minute, I've been lied to. Like, my education system was all, this way, not what I expected. It wasn't for the good of the people. It was to produce workers and sheep, if you will. So before the Europeans came, the Native Americans didn't have diseases. They had a bunch of their own stuff going on, but they didn't have diseases that they've built antibodies for. Anytime, our system builds antibodies when we get like the flu shot or like the COVID-19 shot or whatever, it's like you get a little bit so that your body can build this immunity, right? Like memory cells. So this is a direct quote. I didn't make this up. I got this from a few different sources. It said 90% of Native American people died because of contact with European people. So it was the smallpox, it was obviously like wars, and it was also just the different types of diseases that they carried. Again, the Native Americans didn't have immunity for it. So a lot of the foods, just the trade world, there's a lot that was introduced to the Native Americans, and a lot of them died. And so again, for someone to say you're bringing this disease into my country, we're a human race. This disease started, maybe in Asia. I don't know, because I'm a huge skeptic. So anytime someone says something, I'm just kind of like, yeah, whatever. What do we know, right? Like, what are they really hiding? I say that about a lot of stuff, but regardless of where it started, a lot of different minority groups in the past have been blamed for different diseases. Like for a while in in Mexico, I remember it was like the swine flu and the bird flu and the I don't know what flus were like, oh, the Mexicans, you know, it's just because it was like a campaign against Mexicans and immigrants. And HIV has always been attributed to the Black community. Again, totally crazy narratives. That's why I don't believe shit that ever goes on in the news. That's why I don't watch the news. And it's crazy how now it's like, oh, it's against Asians now. Even though we're talking specifically about China, it's kind of like the Latinos. Like you don't really know where Latinos from until you start to get to know them or hear their accent or whatever. And it's the same with Asians. Like unless we're just stereotyping people now and then hating them because of this crazy rhetoric that we don't even know the real truth behind. So Mexicans, how did we come about? We're a mix of indigenous blood, European blood, and then enslaved people that were brought over, that were ripped from their country in Africa and brought over on slave ships. A lot of them didn't make it because the voyage, I mean, they literally held, they would stack these huge slave ships. They were just huge, and then they would just stack people on top of people. And so a lot of them died because it was like a 2-month voyage or 3, I don't remember the exact time, but it was just so long, and they were throwing food at them, and like there was just, it was the worst. I mean, imagine that. Imagine being stacked up against a bunch of people. A lot of them would die and didn't make it. And so yeah,
I hear what
that
you're
was the
saying,
quick
Prima.
history.
Yeah, and thank you for breaking that down. I hear what you're saying. And what I got from that is that all minority groups have had a struggle. And I don't like how we keep saying, well, Mexicans had it harder, or Asians had it harder, or Blacks. It's like we need to stop that mindset and just start acknowledging us and accepting our differences, because I think that's where the hate comes from. That's where it stems from, fear. We don't know where these cultures are from. We don't know anything about them. We don't know these strangers. But instead of like approaching them as our ancestors did like that, we need to do better by educating ourselves and understanding their culture. And what I mean by culture is their food, their music, their language. That's unique to all these individuals, to all these minority groups. And it's sad how we just keep seeing a depiction of different groups being teared down, you know? And with all these protests that just started with the Atlantic, with the shootings in Georgia, that sparked a bunch of protests in the nations for like stop hate on API, which stands for Asian American Pacific Islander hate. And then we've seen things up in San Francisco where like elderly people are getting beat up or then just spit on and disgusted because they have this false narrative that they brought the coronavirus. And you know, just to think cognitively for yourself and just think how silly that sounds, you know, like this person has lived here their entire life and yet we're hating on them because of the way they look, and they have no control over that. And when I think about it, it's like, how can I hate someone being born a way they have no control of? They weren't born and chose to say, okay, I want to have black skin. I want to have straight hair. I want to be from this region. It's like we're all so mixed. And I've said it before, when I was in a class, we learned about race. And that term alone was made and created by this white guy who said, well, you look like this, you look like that. And it was just 5 choices. And we still embed that idea, that theory that, yeah, let's still label these people. And instead of labeling them, I think we should get to know our neighbors, our community members, our classmates, because there are moms, there are sisters, there are brothers, there are grandparents, and it doesn't affect us until it happens to us. And I don't like the idea that we're going to wait until it happens to us to fix it. We are completely capable and control of our own choices. And I want to talk about this. The more we talk about it, the more it gets out there, the more people are going to start questioning their ideas and like, okay, well, why do I think like this? Why don't I like these group of people? Why does it bother me this way, you know? So I hear what you're saying, Prima, and it sucks. Like we still embed a history that we weren't even a part of. What 300 years ago, what Christopher Columbus did or didn't do this thing, but we're taught it in our history books. Well, we shouldn't.
And we're taught it because it's from a Eurocentric perspective, you know. And I think we we place a lot of unconscious authority on white men, and that's you know how we're taught. And one thing that has always stood out to me when I was doing some research on this topic, like when we talked about other groups that have been discriminated against, like, you know, we were talking about defund the police and Black Lives Matter, and, you know, the stuff that's going on with ICE detention camps, and people, you know, Latinos have always been also discriminated against. And all of this is like, if you're not of the superior race, and we think that the superior race is white because that's the system that we live in, and we don't question it, because it wasn't just white people attacking Asians, you know, it was people of other races. And I don't like the whole idea of like, because we are different, we have different cultures, and that's beautiful, and we should obviously be open to everything. But to look even like bigger than that, it's like we're all human beings, we're all, who cares that we have different cultures? You can still be open. Why do we have to be so like exclusive about, no, like this is what Mexicans do, and this is what, you know? That's why I've questioned my identity a lot as a Mexican woman. And it's just like, well, I don't agree with a lot of the shit that is in my culture, like the machismo, how I was treated growing up as a woman compared to my brothers, how women are viewed as like sexual objects. And, you know, I just, there's just a lot of things that it's like, well, I don't necessarily identify with my culture 100%. I love our food and our music, but other than that, I don't really think that I have a huge connection to it, because I think we're all so amazing as humans. We've all created our own cultures, and then we've all had stuff that comes from it, like the food, the music, you know, the different influences. And I think that's so beautiful. So for someone to not be open to that, I think it's like you're missing out on life, because we're all human beings. And as okay, so as people, as societies, where we are human civilization today, we created these groups. We created like, no, you're different, you go to that box, we're going to put you in this category, we're going to put you in that category. And if you step outside of that category, it's a control thing. We're going to label you, you're going to be ostracized by society. Look at me, people think I'm crazy because I don't like to be in anything. And if I start to assimilate with something, I'm like, no, let me blur the line again. I don't know why, but I think it's because I think it's all ridiculous. Like, one thing that I thought of with this was like when people are saying like, go back to where you came from, because we've heard it from, you know, like I think Latinos also hear that a lot. And it's like, you know, Thanksgiving, I don't celebrate that holiday. I don't celebrate no holidays. Like I think Halloween's cool. But to be honest, you know, like once I started to learn real history, and like the history behind Thanksgiving, I was just like, that's crazy. You know, how we don't even question things from the past, and we just celebrate it. And then I'm the crazy one in the family, because it's like, oh, Cindy doesn't celebrate holidays. And it's like, well, because it's a horrible thing that happened. And why am I going to do it just because everyone else is doing it? And I think we're so conditioned to think in a certain way, and we have like hierarchies. But again, we've built that. We've also given that power. And I feel like that's another thing. It's like we got to start questioning, why do we give power to the things that we do give to? Why do we give authority, whatever authority figure it is? Where did we learn this? Because we all have authority. I feel like we all have the right to express ourselves. We all have the right to um, live
choices
freely in this world, to make choices. Like, why does it have to be like, well, no, that person can make more choices than you?
Exactly. And I just want to clarify, Cindy is 100% the black sheep of our family. No one
I don't know
likes her
why.
around the holidays. Yeah, I don't know. You just did that to yourself. So I'm
I
glad you
didn't do it
acknowledged
to
that.
myself. I know.
Just know we love you.
Yeah, you guys love me. I may be the
Yeah.
black sheep, but I'm also the favorite. So hey, you can't have it
Interesting.
all.
I know. But you're
So
right.
go ahead.
I hear what you're saying, and I don't know why. I think we are making changes. Like, look, uh, defunding the police, we're being more conscious of the way we're raising our kids now. Like there's a huge system called child development where we're really nurturing our children, or we're trying something different than I think we haven't seen different in, I would say, the last 3 decades of our lives. Like I look at my parents, and my parents didn't have much of a different upbringing than their parents, and I can't go much more deeper in that, but I think with our generation we are trying to make changes. Yeah, they're not gigantic changes that we want to see, but it's these little steps where we're setting up our kids, future generations, with less hate. And I don't know what it looks like on other parts of the world, other parts of the city, when it comes to that small community where it's predominantly just one race. I'm born and raised in LA. It's super diverse out here. So my way of thinking is very different than a lot of people's, but I can't speak for people who live in a community. And we talked about this when we were talking about, remind me the episode, Prima, when we were talking about hate and
Well, we did defunding the police and Black Lives Matter. Haters are gonna hate. Should I
haters
just
are
go down
going
the
to
list of
hate.
Oliver? Oh,
There we go. Haters are going to hate. And we talked in that episode where it's your environment, and it is part of our solutions, which we'll get into in a little bit, but it's really, I don't know the solution to break that way of thinking in parts that I have no control over. So when I think about all this hate and discrimination I see today, it just reaffirms me, like I can only control my actions and my thoughts, and I can only show my daughter a certain way of life. And that is my contribution right now. I don't have money. I don't have a lot of followers, but I think in my actions, I can control that. Like little steps, right? It's a bunch of little things like that. And I want to throw out that term compassion, because aside from education, I think understanding people, which comes from compassion, and hearing them out is going to stop a lot of this. I can never have the courage to just be on the public transportation system and see someone across from me of a different race and just spew hate. Where's the solution in that? How do we stop that? And it is frustrating, right?
yes. I think one of the ways that we stop it, and we have brought this up in the other episodes, has been the newer generations. We have to break these cycles, and I may be the black sheep of the family because I'm going to the other extreme where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna break every fucking cycle I could possibly think of, because why not? Even if they're not negative, why can't we think different? Like we're born into this world to be happy, thriving human beings. And then the systems that we've made up for ourselves as humans, they're so outdated. I'm not saying that we don't need systems. I'm just saying the ones that we have are still promoting racism, are still promoting power and control in a negative way. We can have thriving, financially thriving communities. I'm not saying take away that aspect, but why can't it be more possible and more to help the human race out, like to elevate? Every other species on this planet watches out for themselves. They're not attacking other people, or I'm sorry, other species. And if they are attacking other species, is because it's a survival mechanism where they have to eat or reproduce, but it's not a personal attack. It's not like I'm about to fuck your shit up forever. Like
It's not
it's
like
more
what that
like,
guy said. The guy said, I'm having a bad day. And like, that's why he killed 8 people in Atlanta.
and
It's
then that whole story, like he's having a bad day, but oh man, but if that would have been a black guy, he would have been shot on the spot. But and I'm not saying that all of the stuff is white people's fault, but that's just a very clear example on how he was having a bad day, so that's why he killed these people. Would you have had that same fucking mercy for another type of race? Like, let's be real. As much as we want to say, like, no, I don't agree with all that, I don't agree with defunding the police, we've seen it so many times. How did he was having a bad day, and these other people that were like, well, he looked suspicious, so we killed him. So we beat him up. He was a black guy. He fit the description. We beat him up. Hashtag Rodney King. Like, what? That's a very Eurocentric idea where it's like, we'll look at a white guy and we're so easy to say, yeah, he did that because he was having a bad day. Give that same grace to everybody else then. I'm not saying don't give it to him. I'm saying give that, like, well, then this other person that did that shit was also having a bad day. Let's talk mental health then. Let's make mental health all across the board. That's why anybody does any crazy act. So that one's crazy. So what I wanted to say about the generations was, a lot of people are saying in some comment sections, like, well, Asians also are very racist. You know, they're racist, blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot, like, between Asians are racist towards Black people and other minority groups. And it reminds me of, like, when we talked about Black Lives Matter and how we talked about our older generations and how they're also conditioned to look at the superior white race as superior. So anybody else is less than. And our older generations are racist towards other minority groups. So we are the new generation. We have to break that cycle. We have to not engage with our older generations. If we don't want to know how else to do it when they're saying negative shit, like, at least don't engage. Walk away, change the conversation. Like, don't continue to laugh at the shit that goes on. You know, when it's really meant with some hate, I think that's when we have to say no. And a lot of the people that are being attacked, there's so many people around them not doing anything. And I don't know, I think that's crazy, because I don't know if I could see someone being attacked, especially an elderly person, and maybe I'm next in the attack, but I don't know if I could just stand back. There's so many people against this one person. Everyone's just like, just look forward, pretend it's not happening. I don't know. And I've never been in that situation. So I'm not saying, like, people are probably like, yeah, well, you know, if you would have been in that situation, but that's how you stand up to someone's being attacked and you say something like, stop, that's not right. You know, if you're not taking Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes and you're not ready to take them down safely, we have to stand up to hate. We have to find a way to do it. And I love your response about, it does start with yourself, because we're Mexican. And I think I have a huge responsibility with my daughter and my environment where I work, with my close circle. I take it not as a responsibility, but I know people are watching, because I'm watching others, right? So I know people are watching me, and I try to lead by example. I really try to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. If I'm talking about self-care and self-respect, you better believe I'm eating clean. I'm working my body. I'm challenging myself every day. I'm being organized. I'm being on top of my shit. And that's not easy. It's kind of lonely, and not lonely in a bad way, but I've been able to do what I do because I don't have a social life, and I'm happier now, you know, because you have to be the example. You have to discipline yourself, and that creates a ripple effect for your children, the people around you. It sends out positive vibes. It always starts at the individual level, because yeah, I don't have money either to donate. I don't have even the protests. Like, I was working when it happened out here in Denver, and it's just like, I got to feed my family, you know, so I got to be realistic, but what can I do to put the message out there that we need to be more open-minded, do fucking research. Like, if we're always on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, that time that you're spending on these, you know, social media sites, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're spending hours on that and you're not spending hours on educating yourself, even through Facebook, even through YouTube, you can do that are educational. If you're still thinking in your head, go back to where you came from again, and you're not Native American, or you're thinking like, go take your disease, because there's going to be more diseases in the future. So if someone's like, oh, this disease came from, who fucking knows, right? Like, this disease came from Antarctica. Let's attack
all the penguins.
Well, Antarctica. all the penguins. Right, right. Like, so there's going to be more diseases that come out, and it's very ignorant for us to think, oh, that one particular group did this shit on purpose to ruin the rest. Like, come on. That's, we're in a planet. We do crazy shit to this planet as human beings. So stop pretending like you're so fucking perfect and you, oh, go back to your country. Like, bro, go back to your country. That'd be hard, right? That's how it is for the rest of us here. And yeah, sorry. I started, my blood was starting to boil. So I was like, wheel it back in, Cindy.
This is why you're the black sheep, bro. This is how it gets at family parties. It's like we're all trying to have a good time. And then Cindy just starts throwing this in all of our faces. Oh, you're going to open presents? Oh, do you know where presents came from? Forget it, Cindy. This is why no one calls you.
Who invited her? I thought she moved to Colorado.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, it's all materialistic, capitalistic, matrix shit. And you guys are all brainwashed. Just kidding. Just kidding. No, I think, with all of this, I just want to say, like, we need to keep leading with love. We need to keep working on ourselves. Do your own bed, right? We talked about that before, where it's like, do you know how hard it is, unless you're like disciplined or in the military or whatever, to really wake up every single morning and do your bed? I'm not even perfect at it. But because I'm like, oh, like running out of the house, like, why are you running out of the house? Because you didn't wake up on time. Why didn't you wake up on time? Because you're tired, because you didn't sleep right, right? Like everything has a ripple effect. So work on yourself first, always. If you feel the need to hate on someone else based off of whatever, always ask yourself, what are you doing? What are you doing in your life? Are you contributing to your life and to those around you? Are you being kind and patient and open-minded? Because we're all working on that. No one's perfect. And so it's like, check yourself before you wreck yourself and before you check someone else, because it's not fair. It's not fair. And it's not fair to rush up on someone from behind and attack them when they're defenseless. That's like when people hunt. Like my daughter the other day was like, we were reading this book and it was about these guys that killed these ducks. And it was like, she literally started crying. She's very emotional.
Yeah, I
But
know.
she's like, people do that, and like she's getting to the age where she's asking questions, right? And I got to keep it real. And I'm like, yeah, people do that. Like people kill other animals for sport. And she's like, what? Like she's so confused. And I'm like, I don't understand. I can't put myself in those. Again, it's their environment who taught them that creatures are less than, right? That animals are less than, and so they don't have a heart, and so they don't look at them the same. So I understand how they came to that, but we need to get more in touch with nature, because we're all beautiful. And if we had more empathy towards nature and notice that we're all one, no, we're not greater than any other species on this planet, I feel that would make us a little bit more empathetic to each other.
I hear you. Yeah, I know how sensitive Peace is. I'll never show her a Disney movie anytime I go out there, because the first 5 minutes she starts bawling. And I'm like, the ending hasn't even happened. Remember the dinosaur movie, Good Dinosaur? She's
yes,
like,
I remember that tragic movie that you played for us. And you and Melody were so happy to watch it. And I'm like, I don't get it. Why would you do this to us?
Yeah, but if I were to end on a solution space, I would just like to say that I understand we're all different. It doesn't make me right or wrong that we're different. It doesn't make us wrong if we're different. But if we approach things differently with a sense of compassion and understanding, I think it may affect the outcome for a positive one, instead of such a controversial or like confrontational or even violent one. I think compassion is like my key term. I have a lot of compassion for things that are different. And compassion just is like what you said, is empathy and understanding of the differences around me and the people around me, in my communities, in my school, in my job. It's a tough world out there. So the more compassion we have, I think the better off we'll be in like rolling off that hate, rolling off those differences. It's like, okay, they're just not going to affect me. No, they're just going to be like this shield I have. That compassion is going to block it. But it does make me sad. This is the world we still live in, but I think we are doing our part in trying to make it better for our daughters, for our future kids. That's how we have to think about it,
Yes, we have to be the change we wish to see in the world. That is a quote. That is not mine, but I don't know who quoted it.
I want to say
You have to be the
Gandhi.
change. No, I think you're way off. Just kidding. I have no idea. All right. Well, yeah, my solution is to take it up to the individual level always, and ask yourself, how can I be better as a person? How can I react differently when someone disagrees with me? How can I react even when they disagree, compassionately? But acts of violence, I feel like that just goes to show how we're still evolving, because that's very like I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Like immature. Obviously, it's immature, but to resort to violence still, like the fact that we still have wars going on and we still can just kill others so easily, I feel like that's crazy. Like that's such a crazy, crazy concept. And to those people that it's normalized for, there's no judgment. This is where we're at as a collective. Like we still think that it's okay, or even gun ownership. I'm a big hippie, so of course I'm like, why would you ever need to, but that's where we are, where people feel the need to protect themselves from others with guns, and it's just bad, like that sucks that we even have to think that way. And so
yeah, you said it. We have outdated policies, and it's our job, our duty to update them and change them in our lifetime.
As the new generations, we have to break the generational curses that our grandparents and our ancestors, whatever negative traits they had that was holding them back to living happier, healthier lives and more peaceful lives. You need to adopt we all need to, and there's no playbook. We have to figure it out on our own. But since we do have the internet at our fingertips, I think we should take advantage of that. One thing I always kind of like not fear, but I wonder what technology is going to morph into, because it's always moving so fast. And I'm like, what if one day we don't have the same access? What if that becomes something that they do learn to control? And then it's like, okay, no, that's it. Let's go make it back. There's other countries where it is that way. It's like they're only going to control what is played for them on the internet, like what they have access to. So I think that's pretty crazy, but that's another topic. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Please let us know what you think. Follow us on Instagram at Primas Podcast. DM us if you have any questions, any feedback. If you're too afraid to leave a comment on YouTube, because some people will like text me and I'm like, hey, would you mind putting that on YouTube just to help our algorithm? And I'm not trying to be a sellout, but I'm like, come on, we need it. But no, I'm just saying, like, if you're too afraid to comment on our YouTube or our Instagram, DM us. We're always super open to hear people out, even if they disagree. We're trying to be an inclusive podcast. I'm trying to spread that message as much as possible, that even if we're like a particular way, doesn't mean that we're not open to other ideas, even if they're opposing to ours. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Remember, the Primas stand with our Asian brothers and sisters. We are so sorry for what is going on, and we are going to do our part to try to make humanity and the small steps that we have to take every day better.
Well said. Bye. Primas are out.
Bye.
Bye.